Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a close look at Plume USD, or pUSD.
Mm-hmm.
It's really shaping up to be a key piece in this whole real-world asset finance space, RWAfi, especially on the Plume network.
Yeah, exactly.
Think of it like a tool, maybe, designed to make using real-world assets in DeFi, well, simpler and maybe open up more possibilities.
That's a good way to put it. And yeah, our discussion today, it's all coming straight from the source, the Plume website. We're looking at their overview of pUSD, how it's put together.
It's composition, right?
Right, it's composition, the RWAfi uses they're talking about, how you actually mint it, and what they've got planned next.
Okay. So our job here is basically to pull all that together for you, the listener, give you a clear picture of what pUSD actually is, how it's supposed to work.
And why you might want to track it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially if you're watching stablecoins or this whole intersection of, traditional assets and DeFi. We want to hit the main points without getting totally bogged down in technical jargon.
Seems good.
Okay, let's dive in then. At its heart, what is Plume USD?
So Plume positions pUSD as their, quote, premier stablecoin. But the key thing, I think, is its specific focus. It's not trying to be everything to everyone. It's really built for seamless financial operations within real-world asset finance, RWFI. That specialization is central.
Right, so not just a general DeFi stablecoin, but really tied into RWAs on their network. And the site mentions some specific roles it plays.
It does. They talk about secure payments make sense when you're dealing with potentially valuable real-world stuff.
Yeah.
Also, efficient trading, meaning it'll likely be the go-to asset for swapping things within Plume. And importantly, robust collateralization.
Okay, collateralization, so using it to back loans and things like that.
Precisely. It needs to be seen as reliable collateral for all sorts of financial activities on the platform.
So it's engineered to be like a foundational layer for RWAfi on a Plume. Okay, so how does it actually keep its value, the stability part? What's the structure behind that dollar peg?
Well, the core promise is that 1.1 peg to the US dollar. That's standard stablecoin stuff.
Right.
But the how is interesting. Plume says it's backed by a reserve of the world's most trusted stablecoins.
Ah, okay. Not directly by dollars.
Exactly. So it's backed by things like, presumably, USDC, USDT, maybe others. The idea is diversification for stability and liquidity.
Interesting. So stability depends on the stability of those other stablecoins.
That's the implication, yeah. It has its own risk profile compared to, say, a purely fiat-backed model. Different set of considerations, regulatory or otherwise.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Now, the practical side, where can you actually use this thing? The website talks about a bunch of RWAfi use cases. Can you walk us through some of those?
Yeah, this is where you see the intended utility. They say pUSD is supported by the ecosystem's top apps, and yeah, there's a pretty long list. Maybe instead of just reading them off, we could group them a bit. Like some are about earning yield from RWAs, others are more about lending and borrowing against them, and then there's trading.
That sounds much better, yeah. Easier to grasp. Let's start with earning yield. What platforms are doing that?
Okay, one example they give is Nest. It's focused on letting users earn yield from real-world assets. They mention loans and invoices specifically.
So using pUSD to get exposure to the returns from, like, business loans or something.
That seems to be the idea, yeah. Participating in the income stream from those assets.
Okay, interesting. So that's yield. What about the lending and borrowing side for RWAs?
There are several mentioned there. You've got Solera, which is specifically about lending and borrowing against RWAs. That's pretty fundamental.
Right, basic financial plumbing.
Yeah. Then there's Osprey. They frame that as a bit broader, secure borrowing, lending, and yield. Sort of an all-in-one.
Okay.
And MetaStreet sounds like it's aiming for maybe more complex stuff. Sophisticated borrowing and lending solutions is how they put it. Could be for bigger players or more intricate deals.
So platforms to move capital around using RWAs is the basis. Makes sense. What about trading? Any exchanges or trading platforms using pUSD?
Yep. A few different types here, too. There's Ambient, which they call a 0-to-1 decentralized trading protocol.
0-to-1, what does that mean exactly?
It generally means something fundamentally new, like a novel DX design, perhaps focused on better efficiency, maybe lower slippage, different mechanics than the usual AMMs.
Okay, interesting. And others.
Then there's Satori Finance. They're described as a leading multi-chain perp DX.
Perp DX, so perpetual futures trading.
Exactly. Trading derivatives, contracts without an expiry date on a decentralized platform, and multi-chain suggests pUSD could potentially move beyond just Plume.
Okay, so integrated into both spot and derivatives trading. Any other apps that caught your eye?
Yeah, a couple more. Cultured is kind of different, betting on culture markets like crypto, sports, and more. Shows pUSD might be used beyond purely financial assets.
Culture markets,
Oh,
like prediction markets on trends or events.
seems like it, yeah. A broader application. Then Avalon Labs, the liquidity hub for BTC-Fi.
BTC-Fi, DeFi on Bitcoin.
Right, so pUSD playing a role in bringing liquidity or facilitating DeFi that involves Bitcoin. And let's see, Rooster Protocol, partnering with Maverick Protocol, is focused on RWA liquidity solutions, specifically on Plume.
So dedicated liquidity for these assets.
Seems that way. And finally, Mystic Finance, which again hits on lending, borrowing, and accessing strategies built around RWAs, reinforces that core theme.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a spread. From RWA lending and yield to Bitcoin integration and even betting on sports, it definitely shows they want pUSD to be central to a lot of activity.
Absolutely. It paints a picture of a potentially very active ecosystem.
So if you want to participate in any of this, the obvious next question is, how do you actually get pUSD? What's the minting process look like?
They describe it as seamless and intuitive, which is what you'd hope for.
Yeah.
The main mechanism seems to be this bridge and mint function. So you'd move assets you already have, say, from Ethereum or another chain over to the Plume network.
Okay, bridge them over.
Yeah, bridge them over, and then use those bridged assets to essentially create or mint new pUSD on Plume. It lets you bring capital into their ecosystem.
Right, so you're not buying it directly, you're kind of swapping other assets for it via this minting process. What assets can you use?
They specifically mention depositing popular stablecoins like USDC and USDT.
Okay, the big ones.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes it easy for people already holding stables to convert them into pUSD to use on Plume.
And can you go the other way if you have pUSD and want your USDC back?
Yes, they mention a swap back feature. So you can convert pUSD back into the stablecoins you originally deposited, quote, whenever you need.
Essential for liquidity, really. Can't have people feeling trapped.
Definitely. And critically, they say minting will be possible as soon as Plume goes live.
Okay, so ready from day one, it sounds like. Seems straightforward enough for getting in and out. Now, looking forward, any planned upgrades or new features for pUSD? The site mentioned something.
Yes, they did. There's a planned update coming, they say, in the near future that will let users earn yield with Plume USD.
Ah, interesting. So holding pUSD itself could generate returns.
That's the idea. It wouldn't just be for transacting or stability, but potentially a yield-bearing asset itself. Adds another reason to hold it.
Right. Any hints on how you'd earn that yield? Staking, lending?
They don't go into specifics just yet, just that it provides exclusive access to yield-bearing opportunities. Could be staking, could be integrated lending pools within RWA protocols, maybe other DeFi strategies on Plume.
We'll have to wait and see on the details then, but the potential is there.
Exactly. It adds another layer to its utility.
So for listeners who want to know when that might happen, how should they stay updated?
The usual advice, really. They say follow Plume's official channels, social media, blog, announcements page, that sort of thing.
Standard procedure.
Okay.
Now, thinking about the builders, the developers, any mention of integrating pUSD into other apps on Plume?
Yes, definitely. They state that technical documentation and APIs will be available at launch.
Crucial for ecosystem growth.
Absolutely. It lets other developers easily plug pUSD into their own RWAfi apps on Plume, which should hopefully expand its use cases even further.
Makes sense. And just one tiny detail, I saw something about brand assets. What was that?
Oh yeah, just a practical thing. If people need the official pUSD token symbol for like website interfaces or informational graphics, they make those available for download. Helps keep the branding consistent.
Right, the little details. Okay, let's try and pull this all together. What are the main takeaways about Plume USD?
Okay, so number one, pUSD is Plume's native stablecoin, but it's specifically built for real-world asset finance on their network.
RWSC focused. Got it.
2, it aims for a 1.1 peg with the US dollar, backed by a reserve of other major stablecoins.
Backed by other stables, not fiat directly.
3, its main job is to power all sorts of activity in their RWFi ecosystem: yield, lending, borrowing, trading, connecting to things like Bitcoin even. We saw that whole list of apps.
Yeah, a really diverse set of uses planned.
4, getting it involves bridging other stables like USDC, USDT, and minting pUSD, and you can swap back. Should be live at launch.
User-friendly minting and redemption.
And 5, there's a plan to add yield earning opportunities for pUSD holders soon, making it potentially more than just a medium of exchange.
Right, the upcoming yield feature. Seems like a pretty comprehensive plan.
It does. It really positions pUSD as, well, more than just another stablecoin. It's purpose-built for this specific niche where traditional assets meet blockchain.
Exactly. And that kind of leads to a bigger thought, doesn't it? pUSD is one attempt to bridge this gap using tokenized real-world assets. It makes you wonder.
What's next?
Yeah. What other kinds of real-world assets could eventually get plugged into ecosystems like this? Art, real estate, carbon credits, who knows?
And what does the rise of these specialized RWA-focused stablecoins mean for finance more broadly? It's definitely an area to watch.
Absolutely. Lots to think about there. Well, thanks for breaking all that down.
My pleasure.
Until our next deep dive.